SDG5, Gender Equality.
It's concerning how often we discuss global goals, yet SDG5, achieving gender equality, seems perpetually behind schedule. The sources confirm that progress toward gender equality has been slow, uneven, and sometimes even reversed. The target date of 2030 is very likely to be missed.
It truly highlights the complexity of the challenge. The World Bank emphasizes that gender equality is a fundamental human right, essential for development and central to a sustainable, resilient, and inclusive future. But why is it so hard? The source calls it a uniquely challenging and complex issue.
It requires deep structural shifts, spanning country laws, private sector activities, and even personal lives. The complexity arises because gender outcomes are shaped by formal and informal institutions, actors, and power relations. We've seen significant reversals in some contexts, such as Afghanistan, and ongoing backlash in many societies, adding to the urgency.
I noted that SDG 5 isn't just a goal in isolation, it's a catalyst for the advancement of the other goals. Without achieving Goal 5, the attainment of the SDGs more broadly is at risk. Studies consistently show that removing gender barriers unlocks economic productivity, reduces poverty, deepens social cohesion, and enhances well-being for current and future generations.
Exactly. It's smart economics. But globally, the cost of inaction is extremely high. The UN estimates that without immediate radical action, it will take 286 years to close gaps in legal protection and 300 years to end child marriage.
One of the most urgent targets within SDG 5 is eliminating all forms of violence against women and girls, VAWG or gender-based violence, GBV. This seems foundational to everything else.
It is, unequivocally. Ending violence against women and girls is a precondition to the achievement of gender equality and all of the Sustainable Development Goals. For individuals and families, GBV inflicts immediate, long-lasting, and intergenerational harm to physical and mental well-being, reproductive health, and educational attainment, limiting full participation in every sphere of life.
And this violence persists at alarming rates. Globally, throughout their lifetime, 1 in 3 women, around 736 million, are subjected to physical or sexual violence by an intimate partner or sexual violence from a non-partner.
The source material highlights that laws were crucial here. Countries with domestic violence legislation report lower rates of intimate partner violence, IPV, compared to those without. However, achieving substantive change requires more than just laws. It needs concerted efforts in prevention and response services.
The World Bank's 2024 to 2030 gender strategy specifically includes eliminating all forms of gender-based violence as part of the strategic objective focused on foundational well-being. It also emphasizes expanding care and other enabling services alongside engaging women as leaders for sustainable futures.
In terms of implementation, joint advocacy plays a key role in raising awareness of VAWG. Furthermore, evaluations suggest that UN advocacy generates momentum at national and community levels for adopting or revising key legislation and policies to end GBV. But there is a continuous need for increased investment in prevention strategies to challenge the unequal social norms that fuel this violence. When we look at economic participation, the gender gaps are stark. Women are often trapped in low productivity, low-paying jobs. For example, the share of formal firms with majority woman ownership or women as a top manager is barely 25%.
And this is compounded by the unequal burden of unpaid labor, Target 5.4. Across countries, women bear disproportionate responsibility for housework and care, while men are mostly responsible for market work. On average, women spend 2.5 times more hours on unpaid domestic and care work each day than men.
That unequal distribution severely limits women's participation in the formal economy. If the current rate of progress continues, the next generation of women will still spend about 2.3 more hours per day on unpaid care and domestic work than men.
The World Bank recognizes this constraint and proposes to address economic participation by working to expand and enable economic opportunities.
This involves improving equal access to more and better jobs, expanding ownership and use of economic assets, and expanding access to enabling services like care and digital services.
Addressing unpaid care requires a dual approach, providing public services, infrastructure, and social protection to reduce the burden, and promoting shared responsibility within the household. We need to challenge those harmful social norms that perpetuate the unequal division of labor at home.
That's where male engagement is critical, not just as a policy footnote. The sources suggest working with men and boys, including religious, cultural, local, and political leaders, to engage in dialogue to change stereotypes and promote positive masculinity. Without men taking up more care and housework, gender differences in time use persist even among the well-off and educated.
Beyond labor, securing equal rights to economic resources, property ownership, and financial services, Target 5.A, is crucial. Progress has been made in some areas, such as the increasing recognition of laws guaranteeing equal land rights. Interventions that involve both men and women in dialogues with authorities, such as land planning in Kenya, can successfully demonstrate the benefits of granting women access to assets.
Another persistent area of inequality is leadership and decision-making, Target 5.5. The goal is ensuring women's full and effective participation at all levels of political, economic, and public life.
The numbers are discouraging. Women hold only 26.9% of seats in national parliaments worldwide, and in the private sector, women held only 27.5% of management positions in 2022, a stagnation compared to 2016. The World Bank is now explicitly focusing on this through the strategic objective, engage women as leaders.
The sources link women's participation to better outcomes overall. Women's participation in decision-making improves community resource management and resilience and makes companies more competitive. In politics, giving power to women at the local level has led to increases in the provision of public goods, such as water and sanitation, which mattered more to women.
But here again, deeply held social norms are a major constraint. In many countries, men and women still view men as better political leaders than women. Progress on political participation is often stalled because women face physical and online violence.
To advance, we must strengthen policy frameworks, Target 5.C. The World Bank's 2024 to 2030 strategy emphasizes accountability for gender outcomes, complementing its existing tools with mechanisms that stress gender outcomes in project implementation. It aims for greater ambition to accelerate gender equality for all, encompassing sexual and gender minorities.
Fundamentally, achieving gender equality is difficult, and success requires sustained effort and financing for evidence-based solutions. This is where the funding gap becomes critical. Only about 4% of total bilateral aid is dedicated to programs where gender equality is the principal objective.
So, while policies and legal reforms are necessary and crucial in establishing mechanisms for non-discrimination and equality of opportunity, we need sustained financial commitment and action that transforms the underlying social and institutional constraints.
Exactly. Realizing the ambition of SDG5 requires doing things differently, including supporting innovation, financing, and collective action to overcome these deep-seated challenges.